Speak. Can you hear me? On. Right. Audio. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
There we go. Right. I thought we were all virtual, but that's okay. I wouldn't have been able to make it.
Yeah. Joel showed up. He's here.
Cool. And you're gonna get a transcript out of this uh from Zoom, or are you gonna record it also?
Yeah, from Zoom, I will have a transcript here. I'll get it to. There we go. It is copying that, and give me a sec here. I will share my screen with the agenda. Oh, oh, it's the wrong screen. What can you guys see?
Virtual meeting, work
Oh,
session.
perfect. Perfect. So, who else do we have here? Mallory. Apparently, I shared this. I didn't share this as a webinar for you all, but you're in now.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
I can, yeah.
Okay. Um, so I'm on my phone and I'm hoping that it doesn't drop out on here. Let's see. Okay. So we are starting off with conditional use permit application.
Yes, this is the primary thing to talk about here so that we can be moving forward, hopefully with time to do something at the fair. So we've got Joel here in the office, we got MJ on the call. I talked with Elise a little bit ago. It sounded like she was trying to get home from work to get logged in. John has said he's just got back from his cruise over the weekend. He's got to work tonight, so he won't be able to make it on the call. I don't know about Bruce or Matt though. Um, and what did I just do here? We got Gail. Can you hear me, Gail?
Yeah, I can hear you, but I guess since I'm not a panelist, I can't turn my camera on, so
Okay.
that's why I'm not don't have a camera.
Let me see here. I might be able to. Oh man, I'm clicking all the buttons.
So on your participants list, Kyle, when you pop it up, it should say like participants
There
or
we go.
presenters, and there you go, panelists.
There we go. Right. See if that's changed anything. It's a little.
Yep, that worked. Thank you.
There's there we go. Um, yeah, so basically we have our conditional use permit that limits us from being able to do some of the things that we've talked about wanting to do. Let me see if I can actually share the existing one here. I know I have it. I should have had all these documents open before this meeting started. But I do have that here. Reshare this other screen. Apparently, I was sharing the particular. This
Did you
is.
send it to us, Kyle, already?
I can. I have sent it to you. I sent it to you in the agenda with the agenda for this meeting, but I
Okay,
can.
no, that's fine. I'll get it. You don't need to send it again.
So say 1994, we applied. It went through all of these agencies. Rights to appeal, you go to the order, but get down to the main part. There's starting here on the bottom of page 2, there's all of these conditions of approval. The big ones were number 9. No, where is it? There's 3 of them that I've seen that have been an issue for us. Yeah.
Yeah.
26, camping, tents, RVs limited to vendor patron and during an event or as an event itself. Racing or other such activities involving automobiles, motorcycle, or other motorized vehicles are limited to inside operations only. And there was another one about setbacks.
You scrolled past it. It was number 9.
It was number 9?
Yeah.
No, that's not the one. It says 250 feet from the west property line. This one right here. Number 14. Shall be no new enclosed structures within 250 feet of the west property line. Any new structures within that area will be low value, not used during periods of winter, high winds, and storms. So we kind of have talked about this in the past about those being 3 issues that we'd like to see updated. But before we actually apply, we need to have more of a more detailed conversation about what types of events we're wanting to do and having some specific information on why we would want those changes. Does that sound right, Gail?
Yeah, so what you'll be doing is you'll just be making your case to the hearings officer about why those 3 conditions shouldn't apply anymore. And as part of that, you also want to propose what you do want. So if you don't want a 250-foot setback from the ODF property, do you want to ask for just to default to the standard setbacks for the exclusive farm use zone, which would seem to make sense, or, ODF may counter offer and ask for something bigger but less than 200 feet, but you need to be prepared with a number that you'd like to ask for. Same thing with the outdoor motorized events. You would like to talk a little bit in your application just to list the types of motorized events you want to have outside and how often you think you might have them. And would they be held just during the summer, or do you anticipate running them year round? And then in terms of camping, you'd want to talk about, how many spaces or sites you'd want to have. Is it just for tent camping? Is it only for RV camping? Is there a mix of things? Is it going to be open to the public 24/7, so I can just come on vacation and book a spot at the fairground, or, things like that, so that the hearings officer and as staff writes the report, we need to be able to explain what it is that your board wants to do, and then to present that to the hearings officer so that she can make a logical conclusion based on the requirements of the zoning.
So the only person that this concerns is us and ODF and W, or ODF, sorry. But
Well,
it's,
notice will go out to property owners within 750 feet of your property boundaries. So, and then neighbors will tell neighbors. So I know if you have people who may have had noise complaints or something, they may be either within the notice area or they might hear from their neighbors that something's going on.
this might be a stupid question, but this is outside city limits, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So yeah, thinking about the three issues, yeah, the setback one, that will apply more directly to the ODF, and so we did talk with them. We had a pre-app, so that's another part of the conversation. That we met with Fish and Wildlife, ODFW, and DSL, Department of State Lands, and we talked about the setback issue with ODFW, and it seemed like their concern. They said clearly that their concern was that if they had trees on their property and they fell over and they caused damage to our property, 250 feet was the height of a mature tree. And we were like, well, you don't have any trees in this particular spot. And they had said that they would be open to removing that setback at the very least from like where our stage and our concert is, the hillside going up the hill. They'd like to see that stay in place for the part that's down lower where we would actually be potentially building something that they would be fine with changing that setback. And so the couple of thoughts we have is, one is that there was a building here that was torn down, the old house that was torn down, so we couldn't rebuild on this piece of property right now, or that chunk of our property right now with that 250-foot setback. The other is there's some area over there in between like the red barn where there's actually there's an old footing and there was an old building. So those are two examples of locations on our property that as we were trying to decide what we wanted to do out here, currently it's off limits, but if we were able to update that now as we were going through our strategic planning and we decided we wanted to do something with those, we know, yeah, we can do it. There's no setback, but at this point, we would say we'd like to do that, but we'll have to explore the setback.
What's the standard setback for exclusive farm use buildings?
It's 20 feet on all property lines.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And so as far as you making the case for that, I think we could easily say we had two structures here that are no longer there. We don't have a specific plan to rebuild them at this time, but we would like to do planning and we'd like to know if we can get that changed so that it changes the ideas of what we have. Does that make sense?
Makes
People-
sense to me. So it's 14, 26, and 31, but we talked about 14.
Yeah. That's what we're talking about right now. Pull up a map here.
Kyle, can I ask a quick question? And maybe it's something that Gail will remember. But we had a meeting with ODF in regards to that. And I think that they were open to that as long as their concern was that if a tree on their property line fell on a structure, that then they would be liable for it. And I think that we had the conversation that we could find a workaround in regards to if something like that were to happen. So I don't know if that does need to go before, like through the process of, the conditional use process or changing this. If that would help, if you have something from ODF to say that we're in agreement with allowing you to build closer to the property line.
Yeah, and I recall that conversation as well, Monica, that they were open to it. And I don't know if we could just do it through a separate memorandum of understanding or something, or what other types of agreements the county might have used in these situations before. But that would certainly help the application if we had some sort of agreement with ODF that they weren't opposed to reducing the setbacks.
So, yeah, that's what I recall, is that they would have been open to basically from this line south, um, changing those setbacks, but they wanted to try to keep this and up, this and north, keep the setback in place from the conversation we had with them. Which makes sense, I guess. This is actually trees that are on the property line. This area down here, this is probably 50 feet below the road, and it's, or I don't know, 30 feet below the road, and it's another 20 feet lower than what this is. Whoa, whoa. Holy cow. What did I do? Probably another, say, this is probably 50 feet higher than what this is right here. So there's no trees that are going to fall from down here and damage anything on our property. Even right here, there's really nothing here. This is a ravine in between here and here. But then once you start hitting right here, that's where trees start growing. So I think that they would be, I mean, they said that they would be open to it at that meeting. And so, as far as the case to the hearings officer and why we would want to see a change, so there was a building that was on this footing at one time. I don't know if we would want to build a building there again, but we have that tent. We need a spot to put it. And then this house was here. That's now gone. I mean, if we wanted to build something over here as we're going through our planning, if it's a covered area or anything really, we wouldn't be able to do it. The 250 feet basically gets you to right here. Property lines like right here. That's 250 feet right there. So basically, this whole area right here is off limits for us to build anything again. As is. You have any input, MJ or Mallory, on that?
Just on 14, no, it just sounds like that if you potentially will get something written, I'm assuming from ODF, to acknowledge what what they consider acceptable.
How would that work, Gail? Would that be something that we would want to include in our application, or is that something that you think we would want to have ready, like for the hearing?
Ideally, if you had it with the application, that would be the best path, but ODF will get a public notice once you submit your application. So they will have an immediate chance to send comments in. And it may just be as simple as they send an email saying we have no comments on your proposed changes, or they say we are okay with the southern part having different setbacks, but we want to keep the 250-foot setback on the north side. And then failing that, if they don't respond to public comment and you can't have anything with the application, then I would still continue to talk to them to see if you can get something in writing for them before the hearing.
Yeah. Let's jump in there. Okay, and I may have something from, I can't recall because it's been probably 10 months since we met with them. But there may be something in the follow-up email after we met with them that says that. But if not, I can circle back to them. I think that one's probably going to be pretty straightforward. And again, as far as the justification, there's structures that we potentially considered replacing. Okay. The other easy one, maybe the camping. So as far as camping goes, we do have 4-H camping that happens during the fair, which I think that fits in what the permit says already. It's part of an event or as an event itself. But this whole area has camping. And then the rest of the year, which I think it's even in the application too, that says like RV rallies and stuff like that. But the rest of the year in this lot, we have RV hookups all through here on both sides. And we do and have been taking individual camping for folks that come into town. I mean, we do have the majority of what we do for camping is people that are here for an event and they want to stay, whether it's a vendor or somebody that wants to come and visit the event. But part of the revenues that we're bringing in are camping. I would think the number was like 970 overnight stays that we had last year, which a lot of that was the 4-H camping because that was, a couple hundred people in there for 6 or 7 days. It's so, getting that straightened out to where it's accurate, I suppose, would be what we're looking to do so that we're not violating those.
What are you looking to do for, are you looking to change? Or are you just wanting to make sure that you document what is already happening?
So right now, it says limit the vendor and patron use and only during an event or as an event itself. And so it's not outright allowing us to just have somebody come off the street and camp.
Yeah, I am kind of curious of how much of a reaction you're going to get from neighbors on that. Because you don't really have a camp host, and how are you going to reassure people you don't just have a whole bunch of people just spend a night and partying all night without supervision? It's just a thought. That's what I might think if I saw this as a neighbor.
Yeah. Yeah, that's that is a connected conversation, and it's something that I'd mentioned in the past that it would be ideal to get a camp host, even if it was just like in some months. Because the majority of the camping is on the weekends, when staff's not here. But we talked about this briefly right before all the new fair board members came on board about trying to establish some camping rules. But right now, what we do is no more than 14 days. But there is no camp host or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really sure why you do that. I'm sure there's a reason.
We get $35.
Okay. Yeah.
It's a revenue source for us.
Kyle, when you face away from the computer, I have a hard time hearing you. I don't know if anybody else does or if it's just me.
Okay. I'll make sure I'm looking at it. Let me see which microphone I'm using.
Sorry, Joel. I know he's probably trying to include you on the conversation by looking at you.
See, this might be a little bit better. It might have been using my laptop microphone.
Yeah, that's very clear. Yeah, I'm not opposed to camping. I think that if you're gonna submit this, and I'm assuming, I don't know if it's like an all or nothing, or you have to keep going back and forth to adjust any one element of it. I'm assuming you're just coming up with a whole new set of rules because there's other stuff in there that doesn't look like it matches what we do now, anyways. But I just think with the camping, you're probably going to have to provide some more details and mitigation potentially for any issues that arise. Again, if I was a neighbor, I'd be curious as to how you're going to handle it if you're not monitoring who goes there or who's camping there. Just because camping's like a thing. Camping means a lot of different things nowadays. So not always a positive thing.
Yeah.
You do monitor who's there though, right?
We do. They all have to register, but there's nobody here on the weekend. So if someone comes in and does a Dropbox and they haven't told us in advance, we wouldn't know about it. 99% of the people that come here and camp, they make a reservation like a regular renter would.
They'd get,
Yeah. Okay.
call in and they'd say,
Yeah.
hey, we're coming into town. And so unless there was already somebody else that was scheduled to be in there, our gates would be locked if we weren't expecting a camper to come show up. But that being said, and you make a valid point, which this is where the conversation was coming from, say before all of you guys came on board, was those people that want to stay past that 14-day, and they basically, homeless people or looking like homeless people, and
Getting a little
trying
too
to
much
get
stuff
them,
around. Yeah.
then we're trying to get them moved out of here without having to incur any additional costs to move them.
Yep.
And so that's why we have that 14-day requirement, so that
I don't know if you have all this in writing that they sign something to.
there's a very basic registration form.
I think you got a legal guy in the county. I'm assuming he might want to get involved on this one, potentially.
Yeah,
That'd be a good idea.
we've talked about it quite a bit. Yeah, and that was, I think it's even on the rolling calendar, is to talk about camping rules.
Yeah. And then I think that would be a reassurance potentially to say, they're required to have a reservation or whatever the restriction is. And, we have a legal departments aligned with whatever, I don't know, something.
And we do have camping that's already allowed for vendors and patrons.
Sure.
Um,
But those just blend in with all the other stuff that's going on. So there probably is. There's just a lot. And then all of a sudden it's really dark and calm and there's just some random person out there camping out. And they're like, that's gonna hurt. But they're used to it. I get that sense from the neighbors. That would just be the one thing. I think they would just we want to make it sound a little more official. And list out some of the mitigating factors you're doing to ensure you don't have long-term problems.
If we got the attorney, let's use them.
Yeah,
That way it's legal.
Yeah, and I mean all of that should apply to even if we didn't do this code change, but or code change use change, because we still have campers and all that need to have the same rules.
Yep.
I suppose the bigger question is, do we want to be allowing camping outside of events? And if we do want to allow it outside of events, our justification is, what would our justification be? I'd say it's twofold. One is to promote tourism, and the other is to generate revenue for the fairground operations.
Yeah.
Gail?
Yeah, I had just a couple questions for my own information. So with the camping spaces, do they get access to showers or toilets? And do you have a station where they can empty their tanks? And then my other question is, how many camping spaces do you think that you have now, and how many would you want?
So as far as the restrooms, there is a restroom that's always available for them. It's up here. So they're camping down here. They gotta walk across this bridge and walk up to here to get into this restroom there's a men's and a women's, and there's showers in there. And so that is what they use for restrooms. There's no dump site. So when we advertise, it is power and water only. And so as far as the number of sites, I mean, it's this entire parking lot can be filled with parking. So there's not like a hard number. For like individual campers, I think the most that I've ever seen is probably like 25. But if it was like an RV event or something like that, each one of these pedestals, so 1, 2, 3, there's 4, so there's 4 and 4. There's about 30 connections on each one of those for power. And then in the middle here, there's additional connections where there's probably 4 on each one of these. So you could put a significant number of campers in there.
On the restrooms, is that just like open all the time?
They are, yeah. Those restrooms up here are always open, and they're also available for all of the other groups that are coming and using the facilities. So like the 4-H club and the horse clubs and all of them, they're they're getting into these restrooms. They're told that they're not supposed to use the indoor restrooms
Got it.
so that we don't have to, because they're not paying us to use the facilities for their events typically. And so we asked them to use these ones up here to keep those ones from having to have extra maintenance.
Kyle, I have a question.
Yeah.
So from a liability perspective, if you have folks who are coming and camping in that area on a weekend that doesn't have an event, it's not tied to an event, it's just them coming and camping, we allow them to walk all the way across the fairgrounds and use that restroom. So like if in the middle of the night we've got people kind of wandering around to get to that bathroom.
Yeah, well, they're walking up there to the bathroom, but they're on the property. And you're saying liability as far as like theft and getting into other stuff, or liability?
No, I'm talking about somebody tripping and falling, walking across the man bridge because we're sending them
Yeah,
like a quarter of a mile to go use the bathroom.
right. Yeah, I mean that's what they do. To tell you the truth, the majority of the people are just using their RVs.
Well, and I think that would be something that that might be something that for outside of events, this new category, maybe you would just enforce that they have.
Problem is, got a lot of campers that don't have bathrooms with them,
Or or they don't want to use their bathrooms.
Well, yeah.
The storage closet or something.
So like we only camp places that have bathrooms and the showers.
Yep. But I'm just saying for the non-event camping, that might be something that they consider as a camping restriction. But whatever. I don't care. It doesn't, I just something to consider. Kyle, can you tell us how much revenue was last year? Do you know for non-event camping?
I couldn't tell you.
Like guess.
I could look into it and come up with a number. But it said 900 something. Let me see here. What do I have? Do I have a line specifically for camping?
For like non-event camping, that those random people just kind of camping out.
20 grand, maybe.
20 grand
Oh yeah.
for people camping out for without it being related to an event.
Yeah. And that's just a rough guess.
That's good money. That's a lot of camping.
$21,698.
Yeah, we could advertise and get more.
Well, there's that too. Like if we had a camp host,
So you had like 600 nights or 600 that was a total of 600 nights of camping for outside of events.
I'd have to dig into it to see exactly what was put in there. If that includes the event camping as well. Because we have a line that says camping fees, and then we have a line that's basically like rentals or events. So,
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, 21,000 definitely it's a huge revenue. I was thinking it was going to be much smaller than that. So,
what I can't say off the top of my head is if those camping groups got put into camping fees or if they got put into like a facility rental fee. So I'd have to look. And when there's an actual camping event, so if it's a group that's doing an RV rally or
sure.
Like one of the big ones that we have is this soccer group that comes in and they go play soccer in Warrenton and they camp.
Yeah.
We require them to provide additional trash and restrooms for those events.
Got it.
But the one-off campers that are just coming and like, hey, it's Memorial Day weekend and all the campgrounds are full and we hear you have camping. Those are the ones that they're either using self-contained or they're walking over the bridge to go in.
How long
is the restroom?
Or they're just going in bushes, but anyway. So.
How long has the camping been open to the public?
As far as I know, it's always been the case. I mean, I didn't know that it wasn't in the approvals until we had a discussion about, the conditional use permit in the first place. So as far as I know, we've been booking camping for
We ever had
quite
a
long
liability
time.
issue?
We've had a couple people who want to overstay their time. As far as an injury or accident, we haven't had any incidences like that yet, but um we've had a couple of people that we had to basically trespass off of the property.
Yeah.
But it's been I think maybe twice I've had to do it, twice in 2 years.
Yeah.
Which is something that we could address through our rules. Either, they've got to pay they got to have like a credit card on file or something, so that if we have to move them, we can charge it to them. Or, some of the other rules that other facilities do, or it's like you have to have so new of an RV.
Or a deposit, like, hey, if we have to move this thing, it's $500. You'll get it back when you leave.
Right.
But
That being said, I don't know of any other campgrounds that require you to have all of that. So
yeah,
who's gonna do that to actually stay here? One of the other conversations that we had around this camping just recently really was talking about horse camping, and so trying to encourage and advertise groups to come in and camp and bring their horses, and then they could go and ride the beach or whatever. And it sounded like from the horse groups that they thought that there was people that could be a chunk of revenue that we could pull in if we were to set that up.
Yeah.
So
I think on those action items we had, we're going with the assumption that it's a significant revenue source, but it would also be good to get some of legal input as to what else you could do to mitigate any sort of liability. And then probably being clear about the restrictions and the expectations so that the neighbors aren't concerned. But again, you said if you've had it of 600, whether it was for event or not, they're fairly used to it, so it might not be a big a deal for them.
yeah. So as far as other information that you would need for a typical camping operation, Gail, are there any other things that you can think of? It sounded like you would want to know like a number of spots.
Yeah, I think a number of spots, and I'm assuming that you'd be renting renting year round.
Yes, but it's very limited in the winter.
Yeah.
Basically in the winter, it's only connected to an event. But starting in the spring, people will want to be coming in.
Okay. Yeah. So if you can work on a number of spots, that'd be good.
Okay.
Thanks.
You might have more interest this year since Fort Stevens only half the size for 2025. So
Yeah. Well, and this is something long-term planning as far as strategic plan. A lot of fairgrounds have taken on more RV uses, and they've actually were able to get funding in order to expand their RV.
interesting.
I don't know what that looks like, but it's something that could be something we discuss as we go through the strategic planning. Our big problem is that we don't have close access to a public sewer system.
Yeah, that is the problem.
Okay. Now the other one is the outdoor motorized racing. And so, we've talked about this a little bit. We've talked about sure if anybody else is here. Can you guys, I don't know if you can hear Mallory and Elise, but we talked about this field over here wanting to do events, and while technically we could do a rodeo event right now, but we would still have to do some wetland permitting or fill permitting depending on what we wanted to do in the event regarding the wetland stuff. But the motorized racing part is the part that's not allowed by our conditional use permit. So we'd like to be able to do demo derby, mud drags, BMX, monster trucks, whatever down here. barring our ability to get approval for this because of a wetland issue, we still could have the opportunity to do some events in the gravel area during the fair or other times of the year as well. We could set something up and do it in this area. We could also do some motorized events, in our paved area up here, potentially, depending on what it is, go karts or stuff like that. Do a race or I don't even know what other opportunities there would be. Some of it would be based off of what a promoter would be willing to come and do, but I think we'd love to get this approval so that we could do the events down here. And regarding, the wetland piece, well, even if that's not an option, there's still other areas up here that we could potentially do some motorized racing type of events. So in order to request a change for that, you wanted to know more about the specific types of activities that we would be doing.
Yeah, so first of all, Kyle, I don't know if you can bring up the county web map so we can show the floodplain and the wetland overlays, because that would help, I think, in the discussion. But in terms of events, we'd want to know approximately how many events maximum you think you might hit per year. Is there going to be outdoor PA systems? Are there going to be lighting systems that are going to be brought in? Would they just be daytime events, or would there be evening events that would require some sort of lighting? Because then that has a bigger impact on the neighbors out there. Yeah, and then I think just the locations on your site where you want to hold these races or events.
Sorry, I'm just trying to write those notes before I forgot them. I'm pulling this up. Yeah, I don't know if you guys want to have some discussion about what your vision for motorized events looks like.
So when you're saying we need to update the terms of use, that is for what all organizations is that for that we're justifying this to?
Yeah, so if I understand your question correctly, the condition just says any motorized races or event. I think, does it say races, Kyle, or does it say events? Have to be held inside.
Oh, I meant this memorandum of use. This is for ODF as well as who else?
The neighbors, right?
Okay, this is the county in general, like blanket the entire county. This is for the wetland mitigation. This is for everything.
No, so this is just what you can do on the property and how you do it. Basically, it's kind of like your operating standards. So hours of operation, types of events, things like that, setbacks, anything kind of land use related. But the wetlands are going to be something in addition to this, because you're going to have somebody, Kyle's been working with a consultant to talk about where the wetlands might possibly be. And as soon as you start impacting those wetlands, then you get Department of State Lands involved, and it's way more than just Gale and the planning department. It's a much bigger thing at that point.
I guess what I meant was who's going over this? Who's going to approve or deny this?
So the changes to your conditional use permit, planning staff will make a recommendation to the hearings officer. We have an independent hearings officer who operates out of Portland. It's a virtual hearing. We are required by state statute to send notices of the hearing to all property owners within 750 feet. And the hearings officer would make the decision. If there is an appeal of the hearings officer decision, then that goes to the Board of Commissioners. And if somebody wanted to appeal that, it would go to the State Land Use Board of Appeals and work its way up the court system.
Thank you. Sorry, I don't know how all this works.
And so,
Yeah, I'm probably giving way too much information and not answering your question. So keep asking questions.
That's exactly the answer I was looking for. Thank you.
Okay.
Essentially, it's the approval
Of the locals.
of the local planning code, and we have to do it because it's not an outright use in the local plan in the county planning code.
Yeah, because it's zoned exclusive farm use. It's one of the most protective categories in the state planning system. And the state, the Oregon revised statutes actually set up the rules for what you can and cannot do in exclusive farm use zones. So this is above and beyond just what a county wants to do with its local zoning code. This is actually set at the state level.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
I think for this one, it would be interesting, Kyle, if you recognize there's different areas, like the gravelled area,
Yeah.
and potentially around the fairground, around the building or near the building or something. And maybe that is like one. And then the other one was if the wetlands gets approval, gets whatever, if wetlands is going to be back in available, then I don't know if you go back after that to try to get approval for these outdoor activities, or you do it tentatively. Because it seems like you're the closer you get to the wetlands, the closer you are to the farmers and the houses as well. Where if it's just around the fairgrounds and the gravel area, that might be. I'm just curious, would you be thinking it might be helpful to just do that one first? And then I'm not sure how involved it is to go back later, because we know the wetlands thing is pretty involved and tentative.
Are you calling some of this the wetlands too?
Yeah, and I think there's another this which of these layers did you want to see on, Gail?
Yeah, so the one you have on now is good. That's the National Wetland Inventory. That was done several years ago, and it's not as accurate as the statewide inventory, which was the pinkish one you just had on.
This is the hydric soil.
Just below where your mouse is. DSL SWI hydric, right there. Yeah.
Okay.
So the hydric soil is what the state uses now to figure out if there could even potentially be wetlands, and you can see it covers most of the southern property. And then if you go above that, Kyle, up on the list of layers up to the floodplain.
Is it way up here?
Yeah, yeah, right there. So you can see the floodplain kind of overlaps where the hydric soils are on the property. And it includes that gravel parking lot, which probably needs to be taken out, but that's a separate process with FEMA. Yeah, so those are kind of the constraints that you're trying to dodge as you look at that southern property.
Yeah, and so we'll know more about this flood hazard one is tricky. I don't know what our answer for that one is. It's one of the things that we've been talking about in Warrenton is like it's behind a levee, and so technically it's a floodplain that's protected from a levee, but this map isn't assuming that there's a levee there, from what I understand. So that's an issue that could be explored, I guess. Yeah, then once they actually come in and do the delineation, hopefully there's a mesh between these two different maps. Because you have this one that, the pink one that's like everything. And then you have, this one that, is much more favorable and promising for us to be able to do something. So if there's some boundary in between, I don't know, or some kind of in between on those two that we end up with once they do the delineation, that's going to be the ultimate say in what we can and can't do. But I think something that is important to note is that, we could technically have events in that field right now if it was a rodeo event. We would still have to go through the wetland thing and potentially get a temporary fill permit, which is the same process that right now we would have to go through to do a motorsport event. But we could outright do a rodeo because it doesn't say no motorized racing. We can't plan a motorized event because it says no motorized racing outdoors. So we could do events down there. We've been issued permits from from DSL in the past to do rodeo events in those fields before, from what I understand. I mean, we've had them out there in the past, but right now we can't even go through the motion of planning one and trying to get a wetland permit because it says no motorized racing out there outright. Does that make sense?
Yep. This is the first step. Packet.
So is there a sense of you're gonna do it during daytime hours? You're gonna do it before 8 p.m.? I mean, like you thinking about what do you think?
Yeah, it would be daytime. It would be, we wouldn't do anything past 10 p.m. That would be the very latest that we would do any event and and I don't think we can have, the noise ordinance is 10 p.m. So that would keep us in line with that. As far as the time of year, we would probably really only be planning to do these events during the dry weather months, which would be, I think it's like typically May through November. And I mean, probably best case would be 3 events a year, but maybe if it was something that was really popular, it could be once a month in that time period. But I'd say if we even had 3 times a year would be successful for us. Something during the fair and maybe something after the fair.
I think yeah. Hey, Gail, so in that,
Chat.
oh,
No, you go ahead.
oh, okay. Hey, Gail, so in that, that area below the parking towards Steve James's house, right here, can you point with the mouse up higher?
Right here. Yeah.
Up higher, that green spot there, right in the middle. How much too low is that for wetlands?
Oh, that I don't know. I am not a wetland person.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
I was just curious, like how much fill we would actually have to bring in. Like, is it even doable?
So we got like 10 minutes left on this meeting. Can we finish out on the conditional use permit items? Like what are you envisioning in the racing one there, Kyle? What have you thought about to
So demo derby would be one. Drag races, tractor pulls.
Well, I meant like, what would you write to try to convince the neighbors that they aren't going to be inconvenienced, or the county that they're not going to be saying, no, we're not going to do that. You guys are going to cause too much damage.
Well, I mean, I don't know about the damage piece because I don't think that's necessarily, I mean, I guess particularly in the spot, if somebody had a strong environmentalist side that they might say damage, but as far as any of the like actual groundwork, it would all be restored back every time, unless we were to get it instead of a temporary permit, we got basically a fill permit, and we were allowed to fill that. That would all be done through the DSL.
Oh, so you have to get a permit for each event, even if you have this conditional use permit. Did I hear that?
At this point, unless we get it determined that it's upland, if it's upland, then we can do with whatever we want.
Okay.
But that same thing goes for just in motorized racing in general. If we wanted to set up a racetrack up here, it's not in the wetland at all. We wouldn't have to get a fill permit or anything. We just need to have this condition changed so that we can actually have these racing events. And so as far as justifying why to do it, one is public interest. Like we actually have people from the community calling and asking to book these events. But then you even see in the original list of potential events, motorcycle and mud races. What else do they have? Destruction derbies. These are events that happen at a lot of traditional.
Yeah.
At a lot of.
And I think that's
right.
That makes sense. Where it's just, and I mean, that might just be it too. This is customary for activities and events for a fair and a fairgrounds. So.
And the events will be, there's public that are actually asking if they can produce these events. but they don't fit well inside of a 40,000 square foot.
Yeah. Yeah.
They just
Yeah,
don't.
that makes sense. Okay. I'm just trying to help figure out what we're gonna say for the write-up. There were a couple other items that I think need to be looked at. I'll stop at the bottom of the list. One was number 30, and should be really easy. It says that indoor events and activities should not operate out before 7 a.m. nor after 12 p.m., which is noon. So pretty sure we do that already. I think that was just a typo.
Right? That's a good point.
I was like, I'm pretty sure you need to learn that. And then I'm 20. I don't know if you want to address it or not. I don't know that you guys are following that rule.
Um, I mean, we do. We do. We talk to the sheriff's department in public works. I haven't never talked with the state police, but I have talked with ODOT about traffic control, specifically regarding the concert.
So you may want to reword that so that for any large events, you will review it with the sheriff's department or something like that. Because I mean, you guys, I mean, you have traffic control. I think they were down last year, they were just down on 202, right? Pulling people over, basically.
Yeah. You're talking about at the
For the
rodeo or at
concert.
the fair?
Pardon me?
You're talking about at the rodeo or at the fair?
It was after the concert. After concert, in previous years they've been more of a presence, but there's not that much of a presence. But maybe it's. I think it would just like it. It sounds like you are in this one. It states if there's congestion, they'll provide. Oh, I guess they're just saying they'll provide guidance. So if that's what they do, then that sounds like you already checked it off the list. So maybe not that one.
And this is something that, the fact that none of us were here when this was put into place, but
Right.
when you read through this, there's a couple of underlying things that I think are where the majority of these conditions came from. One was that ODF is the next door neighbor, and they were concerned, the fairgrounds is coming in, they've had it nice and quiet, and then we're going to have this fairground. So
Right.
I think a lot of the comments are really heavily from them.
Yeah.
And that traffic one would affect them quite significantly. Yeah. The other, I think, is out by Colby Lake. There was a racetrack. I don't know what year that got shut down. This was 1995 when they were going through this conditional use permit. But from what I understand, is that racetrack was shut down because of the noise complaints.
Yeah.
And so I think there was probably some concern at the time that this was just going to turn into. I'm just making assumptions here as far as why they would put that in there. That this was just going to end up being the next racetrack with a bunch of races every weekend.
And then there was 12 was maximum height of any dwelling shall be 38 feet. I don't know if that's changed since then. I don't know if you've had big buildings that are taller than that. I have no idea.
I think that's a pretty standard building code requirement in the county.
Yeah, in the EFU now you can do 45 feet for a lot of structures, so we would want to look at that.
Yeah.
Just to instead of having to change it later. And then number 6, I wasn't sure what that meant. So it says the permit, is that the permitting process? Because it looks like this expires. So I'm assuming this is the process to get this permit.
Yeah, so once you got the initial approval in 1994, the fairgrounds basically had 2 years to get this up and running. And if they didn't, then all that approval would have expired and they would have had to start from square one again.
Okay, got it. Those are the items that I just noticed when I was glancing through it.
Okay. Is there any other details that you would like to drill into a little bit tighter, Gail, on the racing? Because I feel like out of everything, that's our number one.
Okay, yeah. The only other question I immediately have is when you do a race, potentially how many vehicles would be involved? Are you talking about 30 vehicles or 300 at a time, or what are the size?
When you say at a time, do you mean all racing at the same time or in every class combined?
I guess it would be at one time, not every class combined.
Okay. Yeah, then it would be different depending on the event. A monster truck thing would be one or two at a time. Um, a drag race would just be the two at a time max. A motorcycle race would probably be like up to 12, I would say, but probably typically 2 to 6. Demo derby, that could be 30 cars, all in there at the same time. But they'd start getting wound down pretty quickly.
Yeah.
What's a reasonable? I you probably have done this type of thing before, obviously. What would be a reasonable like time to say is the cutoff, or like number of vehicles? Like we want it to get approved, obviously. Like I don't want to put stuff that's unreasonable, but at the same time, I don't want to put up red tape for events that we could be holding here and making money and having the community out here.
Yeah, so I think the noise ordinance is going to be probably your biggest cutoff point at that 10 p.m. Um, so I think because a race can be pretty noisy.
Oh yeah.
And so after 10 p.m., I think that you're going to run into just the county's general noise ordinance. So I think that's probably going to end up being your cutoff time.
So that's reasonable to ask for 10 p.m.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And so another question that I have. So say we put this stuff in, and then the community comes back and has some pushback. Is that something that the hearings officer could make some suggested revisions, or would we then potentially, request for some revisions to try to, be good neighbors?
Yeah, I think all of the above. So you can have a separate meeting before you submit your application with the neighbors to let them know what's going on, or even after before they get their public notice. The hearings officer can put additional conditions of approval on. Staff will probably have some conditions with the wetlands that just say any permits that you need to get from DSL, you're going to have to get before you hold your event and give
Yeah.
us a copy. But yeah, it's always better to try and interact with your neighboring property owners before you get to a public hearing, because that's not where you want to be having your negotiations.
We have some text from Elise. She says her microphone's not working. It says neither one of them can talk. Oh, great.
I think you need to promote them to participants,
I
Kyle.
thought I did. Mm,
I'm just an attendee and I'm talking all the time. Or maybe I'm just the only one hearing myself.
Oh, we hear you.
I'm just kidding.
what am I doing? I'm sharing. I'm in so many levels.
Gail, is midnight? Since the indoor activities are indoor, we can go till midnight. That's okay.
Yeah, I think midnight on the indoor activities is okay, but I think
Okay.
the outdoor ones we want to go stop at 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you hear us now?
I can hear you, but I have not been able to speak. Can you hear me now?
We can. Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Sorry about that, guys. I was just like, oh, there's some notifications on my phone.
I just thought, like, as a good neighbor, keeping these, especially the motorized events. I remember when they closed down the Clatsop Speedway, and it was every weekend or every other weekend. We used to go there all the time, and I understand that that's a lot. But if we have motorized of like the big motorized events, only a few times a year, daylight hours, I think we could probably skate by with not being a bad neighbor. That's
and
my only input.
yeah, we've done these events before, and like I said,
Yes.
when they first started, it was like the whole reason why we even discovered these conditions of approval is because we were trying to line up excavation company to come help us do the work, and they were like, "Can we do that work? Is that a wetland?" It's like, well, let's start asking the questions. And so that the wetland question was like, okay, these are what we need to do. But then we found the non-motorized racing, and it's like, well, shoot, we've been doing it for years. It's like technically
Yeah.
those were violations, but the neighbors have seen and have had these events happening around them, and so hopefully they've seen through the years that like we're not talking about really doing anything differently than what was happening in the past. We're just trying to do it correctly and get the stuff changed so that we can do it.
Yeah, it sounds like a great conversation for you to have with them. It's like the last time this was updated, it was in the 90s, or just updating.
For example,
It's not going to be every weekend.
there's a BMX track that was built here at one point. This was in 2012. Let's see. Where's another time? There was an even bigger track that was built at one point. I thought.
Yeah, I know there was a rallycross track.
Yeah, they were doing something all through this whole thing. They had a race that they did out here. That was 2018. And then in 2022, I think they did a demo derby in this footprint in the past. And say, from what I understand, I don't think there was ever any complaints about it. If there was a complaint, then the planning department probably would have investigated it and issued us a warning or a violation at the time. So I think that the neighbors probably know we're not trying to do be loud and noisy, but like you said, that's all part of the conversation to have with them.
Maybe don't hold Burning Man.
Yeah. One of the big ones that we've seen that we've got a lot of requests for is the mud drags. Like they've done mud drags here inside of the building for basically since the fairgrounds was built. But it doesn't really work out that well inside of that building. There's so many people in our community that would just be stoked to do that event outside, and we could probably make it a lot bigger than what they were doing in there. It could be
Great.
it could be our thing, like the Pig and Ford race at Tillamook or something. People come to Clatsop County for the drag race.
That'd be nice to have our niche because people do go to Tillamook County Fair just for pig and Ford races. A lot of people do.
Okay. You have any other thing? Do you think we have enough to move forward with the draft permit, Gail?
Yeah, I think we do. And my understanding is you want to vote on the application itself next Tuesday. Is that correct?
We can get the ball rolling. I think what we're optimistic for is that we can get an approval and do something at the fair this summer. I know a lot of that's going to depend on what we get sorted out with ELS and if we do have any upland in this area. But what we would like to try to start doing is planning to hold an event in the gravel area with the hopes that as we get closer to the fair that we know we can now use this area and we just move that event from up here down to there because it'd be much better.
Okay. Yeah, so just briefly to go over timing, I know we're over our time, but if you do move forward with an application on February 4th and give Kyle the go-ahead to start that process going formally, then once we get the application package from Kyle, we'll schedule it for a hearing with our hearings officer, and that process will probably take at least a month from the time you submit your application to the time you get to the hearing, simply because we have at a minimum a 20-day notice that we have to send out to people. So right there, that's going to add 3 weeks from the time you submit to the time you get to a hearing. So you're probably looking potentially at a hearing probably late March or early April. And then the hearings officer will hear it. It usually takes the hearings officer a week or so to give her final decision on the case. And then if anybody were to appeal it, then you'd go through that appeal process. Otherwise, if there's no appeals, potentially by May 1st, you could be done with this process. So just to give you a brief timeline.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I mean, that's an aggressive timeline, but that's, I think could fit into our schedule. If we can know by sometime in May if we're holding our event up here or holding it down there. And then depending on what we sort out with ELS, I mean, that's a whole separate question on what we can and can't do down here. But said I'm certain we were issued these permits in the past. Especially, by the time we have that hearing, the end of March, I feel like we would have a much better sense if it felt like the community was going to be against us or not. If people are supportive or if people are being adversarial to the idea. But we could be moving along with our plannings to try to make this happen and start moving forward. Not to get too much in the weeds and sidetrack, but what are your thoughts on the whole floodplain implementation stuff? I know that, they basically said no hire any more federal employees and no more, what'd they say, a regulation moratorium.
Yeah, we're just in a holding pattern right now to see what's going to happen. The Oregonians for Floodplain Protection, they're the Tillamook Coalition that is working against doesn't sound right, but that have raised legal challenges and concerns about FEMA's authority to do this. And they have filed a preliminary injunction. They are hoping to hear something initially back, hopefully this week, to decide whether the injunction is going to be granted or not. And so we're just waiting to hear that. And then at the federal level, obviously, there's a lot of uncertainty about the status of FEMA and how that's going to play out. So we are just really in a wait and see pattern right now. But if FEMA remains in place and the FEMA's requirements remain in place, you will have to go through floodplain permitting every time you do an event down here in the southern part. But as long as you're not building anything, it shouldn't be too bad. It should be pretty minimal. Shouldn't have any mitigation requirements or anything. It's when you start building things and digging into the ground that you run into problems.
Yeah. I mean, at most we would be building a jump or, putting in some better dirt for cattle or a horse or something.
So if FEMA was out of the picture on the land use, what would that look like? We would be able to just use it however we want without permits once if this if this memorandum of use gets approved?
Yeah, so if FEMA were to go away, and I don't know, there's kind of the disaster part of FEMA, and then there's the FEMA that runs the flood insurance program. And so I don't know if a dissolution of FEMA would completely eliminate the flood insurance program. And at that point, if that were to happen, then you could basically do whatever you wanted in a floodplain or a floodway without, I'm guessing, any permits. I mean, it's a situation I've never encountered, so I don't know.
The wetland stuff with the state would likely still apply.
That would still apply, yeah.
Unless we get this established as being upland.
Okay.
And then we could do whatever we said. They seemed really open to even the temporary stuff during the dry weather months. And, based off of what I think we know on this property, like with all of this area that you can see has been hayed, like it's currently in agricultural use. We could till it. We could plow the whole thing up. We just can't we just can't dig into the ground to hold an event and then reseed it because that's not an agricultural use. But if we said, hey, we want to plant better grass in here, we could till the whole thing up and plant new grass. Okay. Well, we'll work on this application and go forward with that. Thanks for helping us with this, Gail.
You're welcome. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
very much.
Can you hear Mallory, or are you blocked in and blocked out?
No, I've been able to hear the whole time.
Okay. Sorry about that. I was trying to promote you guys.
That's okay.
Thank you.
You just didn't get to hear my wonderful voice the whole time. So sorry. It's your loss.
I apologize for that. While I have you guys on here, if we could briefly talk about this VIP levels, if that's not something we want to talk about right now, or if we want to wait till next Monday, but
I'm good. I have nothing right now.
Let me pull it up. Because this is where am I looking for? I'm all over the place. Oh. No. No. Oh my Lanta. Bears. Let me just go back to the scratch here. 2024. Oh. Oh man, it is here somewhere. It'll be the last one. There's too many files. There we go. There we go. This is really the setting on this is really the only thing stopping us from moving forward with searching for sponsorships. And I know at the sponsorship committee we discussed at maybe like reducing the amount of tickets that are issued for each level. But if there's any other changes that we would want to see, right now for every $100 you spend, you get one ticket essentially. So I don't know if you want to kind of run
Well, if you're in the lower gravel lot, that one's on the same side. That's not the one you're talking about using for motorized or camping or anything.
Are you talking about this VIP parking?
Yeah, yeah.
So what we did last year was, which I don't know if this picture, we don't have a map that shows it, but basically like an area like this, we had activities in, and then there was this area right here that we used for VIP parking. And it was very limited. It was maybe like 30 VIP parking spots.
Oh, okay. So do we, because if you want to potentially use that for motorized, would that make it that parking's not going to be there because there's gravel and there's stuff going on?
We'll have to have some parking, so no matter what, like this area will not be part of an event. This will be for vendors, and there's vendors that camp during the fair. Like here, so they're going to be camped in these areas back here already.
Yeah. Well, I'm just wondering if you just take off parking as a selling factor. I don't know if it's even that helpful, but if you put it in there, you have to provide it. And I'm just curious if you still want to do that.
I'm definitely
Yes, I think we do need to have it on there. I don't think that we're specifying exactly where it is on here, so I do, I think we can take that part off, but I do think that we need to have that as like an item.
So they may be, even if they have the same parking lot as everybody else, but they have a separate row potentially. If you don't specify it on here, you just say that they have VIP parking passes.
Correct. Yeah, that's all I would do for now.
We're just not going to say where.
And then we can just, we can.
It could be the VIP.
That's like something we can discuss totally later and figure out for sure.
Yeah.
So I think I'm the one that raised my hand on this piece for the tickets. And I do think that we need to lower the amount of tickets that we are doing for the amount of money. So what that looks like, I'm not 100% sure. I've went back and forth, and I kind of thought about just lowering the amount of tickets in each section by like 25%. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but
so that'd be going to like, for a platinum it'd be like 56 tickets.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, we can even it out or whatever, but
40 tickets for a gold.
Yes. I mean, something along those lines.
Is it because it's too crowded in there?
I think we're losing the whole piece of sponsorship, right? Like if we want to sell VIP tickets, cool. Sell VIP tickets for $100. But for sponsorships are supposed to allow us to do more with our money than just get them a ticket. And really what we're doing right now is we're feeding them. They're getting their own area. Like it's so much more that we have done than we really need to do, I think. And when you think of sponsorship, you think of you get your name somewhere, you get this, you
Yeah,
get that, you get a
right.
couple of tickets, you don't get to have all of the tickets for the VIP.
Yeah,
So,
it's like an inexpensive company event that everybody really enjoys at this point. So
yeah,
I kind of had that same observation myself. Is like this really isn't a sponsorship program. It's really just a VIP ticket sale.
correct.
We're doing some acknowledgement. We put them on the flyers and stuff like that. But as far as like what's our cost, if you're talking about the difference between the front of stage ticket that's at $50 and a VIP ticket that's at $100, and then we're feeding each person,
Yep.
and
It's just ridiculous. Yeah. It's
12 to $15 a head to feed a person. So at that point, we're at $75 to put them in there. We've made $25 off of their thing. Plus, they have their own area and and they've got the advertising and all of that. Oh, well, what do you guys think? You're thinking like a 25% reduction. Do you think these gold and platinum level folks are still going to want to make those contributions
Did you sell out of both platinum and gold last year?
We sold one platinum. That's the only one that has a limit. We sold a handful of golds last year. So our goal has been to get $60,000 in revenue. And so that's 600 people. We were at like 58 something last year, so we were just under our goal of last year. But I mean, that's pretty damn close. 58.
You said profit,
58,000.
right? Not
Yeah,
okay.
58,000 in revenue from this VIP program. So we came really close. We had say the one platinum. It's been Nygaard, and they've actually come in and they wanted to buy extra tickets the last 2 years, so they're paying $100 a piece for extra tickets. We only allowed that in the gold and sponsorship level to be able to buy additional tickets.
What if we did this? Because you know how we have a lot of people that like kind of complain that we don't have VIP tickets for sale.
Yeah.
What if we were to do so will you scroll back up? What if we were to do, let's say, I don't know I would almost do 50 for platinum, and then I don't know, 35, 40 for gold. And then what if we had like a special sale where we did VIP tickets for $135 or something, and we only sold, say, 50 of them or something like that. But that would make up the other piece of some of that, and we're getting more for it. Does that make sense?
I get the concept that you're saying, but I'm still processing it myself. So you're saying drop silver and bronze?
Okay, yeah. No, not necessarily. Okay. Can you email this to me, and then what if I just like kind of corrected what I thought and then sent it back out?
Then we'll plan to discuss it at Tuesday and try to.
Yeah. I mean, is anyone against dropping them?
No,
Dropping like the ticket amount of tickets?
No, I think my only thing and my only devil's advocate is if you only sold one platinum and the one platinum is Nygaard and they buy extra, I wouldn't want to steer them in a different direction. If are they consistently your one person?
The last 2 years they have been.
Yeah.
And we only added the platinum.
Cut them by 10 maybe.
I don't see it changing though. I really don't. And I think that I would be more than happy to talk to them and they would fully understand too.
It's something that I'm thinking in my mind right now. And it's just because it's kind of been a wild fall for the fair board. Trying to do if we want to change something, like we need to really make a decision and maybe not do too much of a change. But knowing that we want to be really revisiting this like, for 2026, but trying to do if there's something that we want to do that's really going to be a quality of the event change that we can knock out quickly so that we can get it going. Like we want to be going on sale with our tickets in the next 2 weeks.
What if we just add 10% to all the levels?
Like charge 10% more.
I think we're gonna have a harder time doing it that way. Personally, for asking more money.
So
Keep your money the same and just tweak it like Mallory's saying, because people have it in their mind to see that even number. It's a
like I
marketing.
mentioned, like I realized early on that this really isn't a sponsorship program, but at this time too, it's like to do it right, to put a lot of thought into it. Like I don't want to rush it, but I really want to get on sale also because we're to that point now where
Because
we're ready.
even if we did like the 7,500 and we did 50 tickets, that's $150 for a VIP ticket, which is not crazy.
Okay, so 5,000 divided by 150, that'd be 33 tickets out of gold.
So I would say 30 tickets then.
So did I hear you're increasing the price of the VIP ticket?
I mean, we're not, so that's the thing. Like we need to get that mentality out of our head and out of everyone else's head that the VIP ticket, it's not a VIP ticket. This is a sponsorship for VIP, and then you get some tickets, but we have to try because then
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
But then being able to do, I guess I kind of throw the confusion in there too, though. Being able to do something that we've never done is, maybe hold 45, 50 tickets aside to sell individually as VIP.
Yeah.
So I'll throw, I have it in my head. I just need to put it down so that it makes sense. And then I can send it to you guys.
And, kind of along with the conversation about, really wanting to look at what that experience looks like. We want it to be an exclusive experience. And, at this point, we've just kind of done the same thing every year. Like, is there a more drastic change or significant change that we would like to do to the way we stage and build that VIP area to change the experience for people, which that's a completely different conversation. And this is all something that I think would be a really good thing to work on.
Well, I don't think you're going to have that resolved in 2 weeks.
Right. Not that's what I'm saying. That's like a 20
next year
thing. Yeah.
Okay.
Like other options, like vendors that are only accessible to the VIPs. Like it's not free for them, but they got to pay money at the vendors. But they have different stuff on there that only they can get to, or different types of seating. If it's like booths or something that you could set in there, or individual areas. I mean, there's all kinds of different things you can do for a VIP experience to try to make it a little bit more exclusive that we could look at. And that's another point too, like the price of the ticket to be thinking about. It's like these sponsors they're getting more than just more tickets by doing a platinum sponsor. They're getting the meet and greet. They're getting their banner on the stage. They're getting noticed in radio and social media stuff. Whereas these ones down here, they're not getting all of those bona fide things. So these people should get a little bit more for the higher level than what these people are getting.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, if you've done some stuff, and then everybody be thinking about this for Tuesday, I'll have this as a work session item for us to go on, and then hopefully by next Wednesday or Thursday we can start engaging sponsors, and ideally we at least have platinum and a couple of golds on the flyer when we announce and go public.
Perfect.
Okay, thanks guys.
Hey, wait, Kyle and Mallory, can you stay on, see if we can get our pre-meeting scheduled? Since it might be logistically easier for us to figure it out. We're all on the call.
Yeah, did you see that message, Mallory, about trying to schedule a pre-board meeting? Just kind of. between the
Mhm.
chair and vice chair to kind of get the agenda dialed in and connect on our meetings.
Nope, I did not see that, but that's fine.
Okay. There's are you available on like sometime during the day this week on Thursday maybe and during the daytime we could jump on for a call?
Yeah, that's fine.
Like 1 p.m. Does that work for you, MJ?
Oh, let me look real quick. Calendar. I usually am done with my meetings by then on Thursday. Yeah, Thursday 1, that works for me.
Okay. Sounds good. We'll do that.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thanks, guys. Good meeting.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
Stop sharing. Screw it. Save.
So how long have we been doing this the concert sponsorships for VIP tickets?